Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today we're plunging into a whole set of sources, articles, transcripts, notes, things that give a pretty sharp look at some big challenges right now.
Yeah, we're talking evolving digital threats, what law enforcement is really up against, and even some kind of wild political moments happening in real time.
Exactly. And our mission really is to sift through all this material, pull out the key insights, the surprising bits.
Right, we want to cut through the noise, give you a clearer picture of these complex issues, straight from what the sources are saying.
So let's start with something that's gone from like the fringes to the front page. Swatting.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard the term, but just so we're clear, the sources define swatting as a deliberate criminal act.
It's not a joke.
No, it's reporting a fake emergency, a really serious one, like a hostage situation or an active shooter.
To trick police into sending a huge response,
Mm.
often armed, like a SWAT team, to someone's house.
And the sources show this started where online gaming, hacker communities.
That's right. Often they get the location info from, data brokers, things like that.
Mhm.
But the key thing they stress is this is not a harmless prank. Far from it.
No, it's incredibly dangerous. It can cause real physical harm. And tragically, it has actually led to death.
Yeah, the sources point right to that 2017 case. An unarmed man shot and killed by police, responding to a fake call. Just awful. Started from an online gaming dispute.
And beyond that personal tragedy, it just wastes critical law enforcement resources, right? Pulls them away from actual emergencies.
Absolutely. And what's really concerning, according to these sources, is how much it surged recently. And the targets. It's broadening.
It's not just gamers anymore.
No, it's hitting media figures, politicians across the board, really, and disturbingly marginalized groups too.
Like what?
Well, the sources mention incidents targeting Jewish institutions, a Muslim mosque, where someone called in simulating gunfire. Even university students held at gunpoint by police before they figured out it was fake.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack this. The FBI is clearly taking this seriously now.
Very seriously. The sources show FBI Director Kash Patel has been really public about tackling this, what he calls an alarming rise.
You have quotes from him.
Yeah, he's quoted directly saying his goal is to address the alarming rise and calling it a dangerous trend. He specifically adds they're taking action to investigate and hold those responsible accountable.
And he condemned it pretty strongly, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. The sources quote him saying, this isn't about politics. Politics weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but also endangers lives, including those of our officers. This will not be tolerated.
Strong words. And he's working with local police on this.
Yes, committed to working with local law enforcement to crack down, as the sources put it.
Are there examples of this crackdown? Arrests happening?
Yep. The sources give a couple of specific examples. There was that Bethlehem Central School District case last year, threats, swatting calls.
I remember hearing about that one.
Right. Investigations led to arrest 2 Canadian teens and a local 15-year-old charged with making terroristic threats.
And didn't some parents think it might be like an inside job or something?
Yeah, one parent was quoted saying that, though the sources also note the legal hurdles, like probably not being able to extradite the juveniles from Canada.
Right, complexities there. What else?
Well, another major case the sources highlight is this guy, Thomas Samedo, Romanian national. He pled guilty to running a massive swatting scheme.
Massive how? Who is he targeting?
Really high-profile people, dozens of members of Congress, executive branch officials, judges, media figures, former government officials.
So definitely not random. He was making specific threats.
Terrifying ones.
Mm-hmm.
False reports of mass shootings at synagogues, threats against the president-elect right after the 2020 election, things like that.
And why? What was his motivation, according to the sources?
It's pretty chilling. The material says he targeted people with big audiences, streamers included, specifically because he wanted them to react publicly.
Wow.
Yeah, and he encouraged others. One of his subordinates apparently bragged about wasting hundreds of thousands in taxpayer dollars doing this.
And they're getting more sophisticated, using tech.
That's what the sources say, mentioning things like AI-generated sound effects to make the fake emergency calls sound more real.
Okay, this is already pretty intense, but then there's a twist, right? Something from one of the sources about Director Patel himself.
Yeah, this is kind of stunning. While he was discussing this very issue, the rise in swatting, on the Joe Rogan podcast, he revealed something personal.
What was it?
He said his own house just got swatted yesterday, referring to June 5th, 2025.
What? You're kidding. The head of the FBI, he got swatted.
That was pretty much Rogan's reaction, too. You could hear the surprise, like the head of the FBI gets swatted.
That is unbelievable. The
That
guy
time.
leading the charge against swatting becomes a target himself.
Right. It just shows how these threats aren't abstract. They can hit anyone.
How did Patel frame it?
Well, he connected it to the pushback he says he faces trying to expose corruption, called being targeted like this, the ultimate height of hypocrisy.
Did the police actually roll out?
The sources mention a local report confirmed the call came in, but it was apparently flagged as likely fake before a full SWAT-level response was dispatched. But the intent, clearly there.
So this swatting thing, it really seems to feed into this larger conversation in the sources about politics getting involved where it shouldn't, maybe. Weaponization of government.
Absolutely. Patel's stated mission, as laid out in these materials, is exactly that. Expose truth, hold people accountable if possible, and stop the weaponization of justice and the politicization of intelligence. Annihilate it was the word used.
And he points to his past work, like Russiagate.
Yeah, he uses that as a key example. The sources summarize his take, basically, alleging a political scheme using fake foreign intelligence.
Right, to get surveillance warrants on an opponent via the FISA court?
Exactly. And alleging that info, which might have cleared the target, was deliberately left out of court applications, and that this involved coordination with some in the media.
And he faced pushback for investigating it.
Big time, according to him. He talks about being called names, even getting subpoenaed by former DOJ FBI leaders. He saw it as an all-hands-on approach to protect, what he viewed as corrupt actions.
He mentioned something about statutes of limitations, too.
Right. That for some past acts, prosecution just wasn't possible anymore because too much time had passed. He used the Nellie Orr example related to her work on the Steele dossier, saying documentation suggested she lied to Congress, but the time limit was up.
The sources also touch on the Jeffrey Epstein case, right? Which always has so many theories swirling around it.
They do. And based on the information they reviewed, both Patel and Dan Bongino state their position, as presented in the sources, is that Epstein killed himself.
What's the reasoning given?
Patel specifically draws on his background, working in jails, segregated housing units. He points to the harsh conditions and the extreme danger child predators face in prison as potential strong motivators for suicide. That's his perspective in the source material.
And there's video coming out.
He mentioned that the cell video from Epstein's detention unit is expected to be released, so the public can see for yourself.
But importantly, the source notes this is the jail cell video, not anything from Epstein Island.
Correct. Important distinction.
Okay, so moving beyond swatting and some of these really politically charged investigations, the sources show the FBI is dealing with a lot of other, maybe more conventional, but critical issues too.
Oh, definitely. Violent crime and the fentanyl crisis are huge focuses.
Patel talks about efforts to crush violent crime.
Yeah, and designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The sources give concrete examples, too, extraditing major traffickers from Colombia and Mexico, seizing literally thousands of kilos of narcotics, including fentanyl.
Which is just devastating communities everywhere.
Absolutely devastating. Border security is another big one mentioned.
Concerns about who's coming across.
Specifically, known or suspected terrorists potentially entering. And the sources describe these troubling partnerships between drug traffickers and foreign adversaries, like Russia, the CCP.
Leading to potential infiltration, cyber threats.
That's the concern raised, yeah. Infiltration of cyber capabilities infrastructure.
And what about crime on tribal lands? That often gets overlooked.
The sources make a point of highlighting that, emphasizing that violent crime there is just as horrific. They note it hasn't always been a priority, maybe, but there are efforts now to work directly with tribal leaders.
They mentioned a specific case.
Yeah, the Emily Pike story was referenced just as an example of the severity, particularly the violence against Native American women.
Anything else on the FBI's plate mentioned?
Just briefly, improving their own facilities needing to move out of the old Hoover building for safety and cost savings, though that's had some controversy. And a recent agro-terrorism case was mentioned too. A scientist allegedly bringing in pathogens. Shows the diversity of threats.
Okay, let's circle back a bit to the information environment itself. This ties into swatting and the challenges we've been discussing. The sources offer a perspective on the media's role.
They do. Presenting a view that sometimes the media acts like attack dogs, maybe, and has participated in pushing narratives described as false.
Any examples given?
A few are cited. A New York Times piece that allegedly framed internal FBI changes negatively. The Hunter Biden laptop story.
Right, initially called Russian disinformation by some.
Yeah, including some former intelligence officials, even though the sources state the FBI knew it was real and indictments eventually followed.
And January 6th comes up, too.
The controversy around the National Guard authorization. The sources present info indicating documents show the D.C. mayor and the House Speaker declined an offer for up to 20,000 Guard troops days before Jan 6th.
Which contrasts with some other narratives about who was responsible for the delay.
Exactly. And the pipe bomber investigation is mentioned too, still ongoing, with one source suggesting the bomb might not have even been functional, rather than just not detonated.
And speaking of the wild information landscape, that Joe Rogan interview had another moment, didn't it? Something happened live.
Oh yeah, right in the middle of their conversation. Totally unexpected.
The producer interrupted them.
Yeah, came on to tell Patel and Rogan that Elon Musk had just tweeted something pretty explosive.
What was the tweet?
According to the sources, Musk tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files."
Wow. Live on air. What was the reaction?
You could apparently see the shock. Patel was clearly taken aback, quickly said it was way outside my lane.
And Rogan.
Just disbelief, questioning out loud how Musk would even know that or have access to those files. Even suggested someone should maybe take his phone away. Seemed concerned about the constant tweeting.
The source material adds context there, right, about the past relationship between Trump and Epstein.
It does note that relationship, which helps explain why Musk suddenly dropping that caused such a stir.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What does all this mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of things?
Well, understanding something like swatting and the FBI's response. It's not just about some niche online thing anymore, is it?
No, it shows how fast digital tactics can bleed into real-world danger, affecting anyone from, regular people to the very top officials.
Right, and it highlights the complexity of threats the FBI is grappling with: cyber harassment, violent crime, national security, foreign infiltration. It's a lot.
And understanding these dynamics around weaponization, disinformation, that seems pretty crucial for just navigating the news today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing how hard it can be to get straight information and thinking critically about the stories, the narratives we see, whether it's about a big investigation or a tweet from a public figure.
It really underscores the challenge of maintaining trust, accountability, when there's just so much information, so many conflicting claims flying around.
So yeah, we've done a real deep dive here, from swatting hitting even the FBI director to the Bureau's broad mission against crime and foreign threats and these really complex issues of weaponization and information, all drawn from the sources we looked at.
And those materials paint a picture, right? An agency facing huge hurdles, external pressures, information warfare. But from the perspective presented, trying to stay focused on transparency, accountability, the core mission.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, maybe here's a thought to chew on, drawn right from these sources. Considering this landscape, we've talked about the politics, the alleged intentional decisions some sources point to, the fact that sometimes there don't seem to be consequences for certain past actions.
Yeah.
What could possibly be the benefit or the motivation behind outcomes that seem counterintuitive? Like one source speculated about allowing conditions that might actually lead to more crime. Why would that ever happen? What does that kind of question raise for you about the hidden layers, the complexity beneath the surface of all these issues?
That's definitely something to think about. Keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep looking below the surface.